What is up, Internet? Welcome back to Milehighkei, America's only K-car channel. I'm back here in the garage, and I'm about to start taking apart the old E07A that came out of the van. If you're just tuning in, welcome, and this is a E07A. It's a 660cc engine made by Honda for the Honda Acty truck, van, the Honda Beat, and a couple other small cars. I was a dumbass and did not change the timing belt and blew it up. So now I'm going to start taking it apart. What I'm going to start with is the whole carburetor setup right here, get the AC compressor off, and then I really want to take off the transmission, because something I'm finding out for the Honda Beat swap is that in order for it to go into the Acty, I'm going to have to use the Acty transmission. This is because the clutch in the Acty is cable driven and in the Beat it is hydro. So just to make things easier on myself right now, I'm going to use the Acty transmission case. And some people do take the 4th and 5th gear out of the Acty transmission and put it into the Beat transmission. So I might try and do the inverse and take 1, 2, and 3 out of the Beat transmission and put it into the Acty transmission. After filming this, I decided I was actually going to do the inverse of what I'm saying here. I'm going to use the Beat transmission and swap over all the stuff that I need from the Acty transmission to make it work, but I will go into more detail in a future video. So back to this video. Also, I wanted to confirm that this is the passenger side or timing belt side motor mount, and it bolts up to the Beat E07A head and block area. It's perfect. So solving one mystery at a time here on Milehighkei.
Wow, that's great. That's great to give something back like that.
This teardown isn't gonna be too specific. I'm just gonna work from the top and go down, and all the bolts should be either 10, 12, or 14 millimeter. The really big bolts will be 17. So I'm just gonna start taking stuff apart and see if I can't get the intake and the carburetor off. Just got the carburetor taken off, and I just wanted to do a little compare contrast real quick while I have both the old and new engines sort of close to each other. So this is, I guess, what you would call like the valley of the engine. So it slants pretty heavy on its side, almost, I would say, more than a 45-degree angle when it's in the car. And this little block off plate on the new engine has a little breather tube on it. Don't know if you can see it under there. So that's pretty interesting. The carburetor sits really flat against here. We may run into some clearance issues trying to fit underneath the access panel right there, because as you can see, I'm trying to hold this kind of where it would be parallel to the ground. The intake, the throttle body, all sticks up pretty far, so we might have to get creative there. All in all, it is very similar. I think all of the mounting points are probably the same. All these down here. This is where you can see the oil pan, at least like the main part of the oil pan is different because it doesn't have that bottom red cover right there. The E07A out of the Beat has a upper and lower oil pan, and the Acty's is just one piece, and this is the dipstick and the oil fill. And on the E07A out of the Beat, the oil fill is just right on the valve cover, and the dipstick is back here. Pretty interesting to see both solutions on the carbureted and fuel injected engines. Now, where I'm going to start up again, taking stuff off, I'm gonna take the AC compressor off. I'm trying to keep things organized. This is everything for the carburetor, and then I'm guessing this will be for the AC compressor, and then I can take the distributor off, and then hopefully just pop the transmission off. So I don't know if this is how it was on the other engine, but this has a little square lock right here. So it looks like it has a 10 mil head, but it is locked into the wheel side of the compressor, and then on the other end is a 14 millimeter nut that you need to loosen to be able to actually take the compressor off of the housing. I definitely found out where my oil leak was coming from. It's looking like the O-ring that was on the distributor just was worn down and causing all of this leakage around here. This 12 mil nut or bolt that is on the inside heat shield for the exhaust is a little stripped out, so gonna get that off, and that will kind of leave us with a pretty bare block and transmission so that I can get the transmission popped off, and then we can take off the head and see what damage we caused. Got the exhaust off. It was a big pain. One of the heat shields was held on with 11mm bolts for some reason. They might have just been 12s, but were corroded. Got this off, and it's actually a really cool kind of like Sidewinder style manifold. I might be able to use this on here instead of the manifold I made. Alright, I'm just saying. I have to use this exhaust manifold anyway for the time being. We might be able to make something adapt to here for the turbo kit instead of the kind of log manifold I made, and it actually puts the turbo up a little higher. One of the coolant tubes does get pretty close down here, but I had planned on wrapping this in header wrap anyways. We might be able to get away with it. Looks pretty awesome to me. The engine is completely broke down. I have everything taken off of it, including the transmission, which is over here. I'm going to start taking off the head so we can see the damage underneath. I got the head disconnected from the block, and at first glance, everything seems to be pretty okay. This is the bottom side of the head. So yeah, the intake side, this is like pretty black, and the exhaust side is a little more clean, so I don't know what that really entails. I'm gonna flip this over, take a look at it, and please excuse the mess. I did some detective work. I took off all of the rocker assembly and took the camshaft out, and now I'm doing sort of a leak down test. So I'm just pouring water into the combustion chamber. There are spark plugs in there, and cylinders 1 and 3 are holding water, but when you put water into cylinder 2, it comes out the intake port. That is definitely not good. Something is going on with the valve seats in cylinder number 2. I can spin the engine pretty easily by hand, which I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing. Got everything taken apart and just gotta clean my mess up here, and then I can get back to what I really want to be doing, which is putting that engine together. Sorry about that. My camera died at the end of the last clip. There was not much to report. It was just taking off the clutch and the flywheel, which I've covered in an earlier video of me taking apart that engine, the 07A out of the Honda Beat. So I just have some of the parts put away right there. All these boxes are filled with parts, carburetors back there, and the entire engine is in that bin, and the head is right there. And what I'll be covering in the next video is just some compare and contrast. So this is the Beat transmission, and this is the Acty transmission. This is a quick, short one. Just wanted to break down the damage that ended up being in my engine after the timing belt broke. To recap, cylinder 2 has a leak on the intake side of the valve train. I think that the engine is salvageable for a rebuild. It was good to just see it taken apart, and even one cylinder being down is more than enough reason to take it all apart. Thanks again for watching. I hope you like all the K-Car content, and we'll see you in the next one. But until then, remember, keep it small.